Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this evening's edition of Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all back.
We are a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, and we broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday evening from and the radio station is called CIVL, and they are on the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. And Unlocking Your Truth, of course, is also a podcast, and it is on all the major podcasting platforms. And we've been doing the show for 7 years, which means that there are about over 350 episodes. And so they're available through your favorite podcasting platform. And if you find a podcasting platform that you use and we're not on it, let us know. But you can also catch all of the back episodes of the show on my website, which is drlesleyphillips.com. And of course, if you are a devoted follower and you are available on Tuesdays from 7 to 8, we pre-record the show for the next week, and you can come and watch it live, and you can ask questions live as we pre-record the show. And we do that on the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group, and we also do it on my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Lesley Phillips's YouTube channel. All right, so every week we have a different topic, a different discussion topic. And tonight, I think we're doing one I don't think we've ever done before.
Yeah, we touched on it once before.
Did we? And did we? So the title of the show is "What Happens to Your Soul When You Die?" And was that because a lot of people are asking that, Corey?
I think when I do my research on what's popular, it's one of the topics that's popular and not popular. People want to know about it, but they don't want to talk about it.
Well, yes, I mean, because it is a polarizing question, because it is one of the things that's frightening for people, you know, especially on the ego level. Will I cease to exist? It's the most frightening thing actually for the human ego to contemplate death and dying. Yeah, no, I was just curious where that came from. And I think to answer that question, where does the soul go when you die, we probably first need to start by defining what do we mean by the soul. And I think everybody out there probably has their own concept of what a soul is. And I know, like all the live audience, I normally don't make you work before the second or third part of the show, but I would just be really, really curious for anyone who's listening live. What's your understanding of the soul? What do you believe the soul is? What do you think it is? Tell us in the chat, because I'd like to read out and share some of your ideas about and beliefs about what a soul is, and then we can have a conversation about it, you know. And in thinking about this earlier today, I think as a species, our concept of what a soul is has changed. It's changed over, I know my concept of what it is has changed over my lifetime and continues to change. I think it's changed over the ages. I think it can be a bit different if you follow a particular religion or spiritual belief system. And so let's get out on the table some of people's definitions of what it is before I talk about it. Did anyone post in the chat, Corey?
Not yet. It takes a few minutes because we got a lag.
Oh.
So, well, nope, not yet.
All right. Well, I'll just start talking.
Well, yeah, I can.
No, I'm good. I can just.
Okay.
Why? Oh, do you want to put your definition in?
No.
Yeah, put your definition into the hat, Corey. What do you believe it is?
Well, something Brian said here is very interesting. He says, I think it's good to revisit topics, even ones you've covered. Times change and our perspective expands. So it leads to different conversations.
It's
And
true.
and it's very true. And I was just thinking, it made me think about my concept of life after death. And the I mean, at first, of course, it was the typical Christian concept of you get judged and you go here or you go there, depending on what you did. But after coming to an understanding about that, I realized that that's just not, if God, quote, the universe is so wonderful and all loving, he wouldn't do that. Or it, at that time, he wouldn't do that. And it changed. It's, to me, I take more of a stance of whatever you deem death after life after death to be, you will experience that for a certain period of time, a little bit, and then you just go back into one massive entity uh, of energy, and then you'll be reborn from there. So, and it's one of those concepts that it's a little bit more difficult for man to understand, because man is like dual in nature, right? It's either this or it's either that. But when you look at life, people think of life as one unit, but actually life isn't one unit. You have pre-life, life, and death, and it's all one. That's a continuation on and on and on to infinity, until you decide to not come back. But it just goes on and on and on and on. So I think we go. But someone said to me the other day that they thought they had a problem with life ending. Well, at a certain point, I think life itself ending completely and not coming back as myself, that's fine. It's not an issue. However, in our past life readings that we do, we have these touches, and some of them are maybe not as accurate as others, but some are like, it's there. It's real. It's uh, that's where you were at that point in time. And when I did the past life regression once with a hypnotist many years ago, before I met you, Dr. Lesley, I remember going to do the in between lives, and I've said this on the show more than once. The in between lives was a really important session for me. When I went, and I actually met 20 or so of the spirits, quote unquote, the entities that I travel through my lives with, and I didn't recognize any of them as individuals in my life at the present time, but I recognize them all as the energy of the people that I travel with. Like my mother was there, my father was there, one of my good friends was there, an ex girlfriend was there, and there were some other ones that were there that I hadn't met you with, and I'm sure you were there. So it's a whole different concept. I don't think life after death. I don't think that I don't think it's one thing. I think it morphs into something on a continuous basis.
So isn't that interesting? Because I took the title quite literally, which the title that and listeners, Corey decides on the subject matter of the.
I'm in charge.
And the title he gave it was "What Happens to Your Soul When You Die?" But in all that you just talked about, you didn't mention the soul and your understanding of the soul. And that was where I was going to start.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because the literal question was, what happens to your soul when you die? Not what happens to you when you die. What happens to your soul when you die?
I can't even answer my own question.
Well, you gave a lot of information, which is really great and relevant. But that was interesting because I'm thinking of what you meant by the question might have been something slightly different. But I can see a few people have written their definition of a soul now.
Yeah, I'm coming up. I'm pulling
Let's see
them
what
up
they've
now.
said, and then I'll start.
I'm pulling them up.
know.
But and you got to remember too that when I do this, when I pick topics, because I'm in charge of doing the marketing or whatever you want to call it for the podcasts and everything, I look for good keywords, and I find keywords that rummage around or root around the topic that we're looking to do. Not always the exact phraseology, but okay. So, oops, let me go this way. Misty says, your soul is true vibration.
That's a good answer.
Misty, you get 10 out of 10. You get 10 out of 10, Misty. Maybe Dr. Lesley will expand on that or expound on it.
Yeah, well, I might do, but I think someone else has written there.
Yes, there are other things there too,
yeah.
but
I'd love to know what everyone else says, so we get a landscape of different perspectives.
oh, so you're not going to discuss what?
No, I want to get it all out on the table, find out what everyone believes.
All of it out on the table.
And then, yeah.
Okay. So we got that from Brian. And Katie says, I might describe it as our inner being or inner light or our love. I believe our souls can communicate whether our bodies are alive or not.
Yeah, also a good definition.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, I guess the question here is the soul different than the spirit?
Well, then you're going to make us have to define spirit and discuss it.
Well, you're talking about soul, so but is the soul different than spirit? Is it a different entity, or is it the
No,
the
well, okay, we'll hold that question for later. Don't
folks, we're holding all the questions for
more.
later. And here's Brian. Brian, let me just put this so I could read it. Okay, Brian says, I believe our soul is our higher self, the energetic aspect of our true self, consciousness shining through our unique self to express and experience life in this and other realms. It is consciousness itself. It reminds me of the way the sun shines, different individual rays of sunlight. We are not the sun, but the rays are part of the sun. Oh, that's a nice
lovely
analogy.
one. That's a beautiful one.
You get 10 points too, Brian.
Yeah.
Katie gets 10 points too.
I don't think I need to talk about this. I think everybody's got their own really great concept about it. Okay. And so I like all of those definitions that the listeners have given us so far, and I was going to talk about the human aspect, the human level, and then the higher aspect, which sometimes we call soul, sometimes we call spirit, sometimes we call higher being. We have different names that it can be a bit confusing that when we're using different names, but I think that they're all referring to that non-physical aspect of ourselves. So you, the human being part of you, has, we could call it we should call it a personality, I guess. You've all got a personality, and your personality, your body personality, is like an outfit that you wear. So this lifetime, you've got a particular outfit, a particular theme, particular characteristics about you that you express. And you have this thing called an ego. You have your ego consciousness, which helps you with your self-identity and helps you with the spiritual reality. But that ego consciousness or personality consciousness is not you. It's like they're both a bit like outfits that you're wearing. And so they are not you. But like I was saying before, the ego can be quite frightened about the idea of death, because the idea of passing from the physical realm to the non-physical realm, the dissolution of the ego occurs. You drop your personality, you don't take your personality with you. That's like an outer garment that drops away when you pass away. So it's the clothes that you wear for this lifetime. And so often the ego, why am I talking about the ego? Oftentimes the ego is, if it isn't a healthy ego, it's out of alignment with your higher being. It's out of alignment with your soul. And the two are not in communication. And that's when you get someone who we might say they're asleep. They're not consciously awake and aware. They're not awakened to the spiritual, the higher aspect of themselves. So it's a bit like if we were using Brian's analogy of the soul being like the sun, it's a bit like you're standing on earth and you're in the mist and there's thick, dense clouds above your head and you can't see the sun. You might even question this, that the sun even exists at all. You might think that all that exists is the human aspect. So, and we might say somebody who's an agnostic or even an atheist might have that perspective, that there's no such thing as a soul. Or people might, and this is, again, I'm sort of trying to take it through a journey of consciousness, awakening to the different concepts of the soul. So the next stage might be, well, I think there might be a soul. I've heard of it, but I don't know where it is. I don't know what it is. It seems like this distant thing far away from me, that's separate from me, that I'm not connected with. And then if you decide to meditate and spend some time turning within, you might get glimpses of, well, I think I'm a bit more than just this personality, a little bit more than just this ego walking around in the physical world. There seems like there's more to life than this, and there's more to me than this human level. And so on the human journey, we start opening to our awareness of the soul. And it still might be the concept of being something outside of us that belongs to us in some way, but yet we don't quite know what it is. And I am going to have to pause for some advertisements now. So I'll come back to that after the ads, and we'll go through some other stages of awakening to the soul. And then we'll also talk about the question of the day is what happens to the soul when you die? Welcome back, listeners. So back to what I was saying before the break. I was talking about the awakening human and the awakening human's relationship with this, what we call the soul. And we were saying that, you know, there's a stage where you don't even know you have a soul, or you become aware that there's such a thing as a soul, but you still don't quite know what it is, and you don't have a personal direct experience of it. But then if you meditate and you start to clear the mist around you, the clouds above your head, then you might start to have some personal experience of what some of you were talking about earlier, you know, the light and love that you truly are, the vibrational essence that you truly are, the energetic aspect, the pure consciousness of you, versus the ego body personality version of you. Then there might be an awareness of, hold on a minute, it's not separate from me at all. I exist within it. I exist within it. I'm never apart from it. So, and, you know, here's some other concepts and metaphors, because I think that the idea of the soul is something that's even hard for humans to, with their linear minds, to truly comprehend. I've often used a disco ball analogy, and it's similar to Brian's rays of the sun, in that, you know, you have the disco ball vibrating on the roof of the disco, and then you have these rays of light from all the different squares on the disco ball. And these are projections of consciousness into physicality. And so you are one of those lights on the floor being reflected from the disco ball. And in that metaphor, we could say, well, other projections of consciousness are the other rays of light, the other lights traveling around on the floor of the disco. And we could say, well, some of them are past lives, parallel lives, future lives, that kind of thing. And it's a great metaphor that we can use to understand the soul. And then even one step further, which Corey alluded to, is there's a sea of consciousness, which is the ocean of everything, all that is, the oneness, and individuated consciousness is a drop from the ocean. And that drop separates itself from the ocean. And that drop merges back into the ocean. And what we say might happen to the soul at death depends on what we believe the soul is. So in that last metaphor, what would we say the soul is? If we say there's an ocean of consciousness, and then it's like Lao Tzu's teaching of the one thing and the 10,000 things. You know, the all is one and the one is all. Yes, Corey.
But when you're saying that, when you're saying there's an ocean or a sea, in
That's
essence,
a metaphor.
pardon me?
It's a metaphor.
It is a metaphor, but I don't know if you look at the universe, and everything is the same energy. We all are energy. Everything is energy. It's all the same energy. It exists. It has existed. It will exist in different forms. Again, I think the human concept of thinking of it as a sea or an ocean is a limiting idea. I think,
anything that we conceive of is a limiting
Yeah.
idea, but it's the best that we can do.
Yeah.
What other metaphor can you come up with?
the
beyond
universe
the
itself
ocean?
with everything in it. I mean, it's
Well, that's
all
what the ocean, the sea
in a
of
different form.
consciousness, that's kind of what the sea of consciousness is meaning.
Yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to put a little bit of my own clarity on it. Ha, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So,
I just realized something, by the way. I forgot to send out the email. I didn't forget to send out the email this morning, and didn't go out properly. Just thought I'd let you know.
and everyone listening to the podcast.
Yeah, why not? I make mistakes. I
Yeah. So what was I saying? I was talking about this idea of being a drop in the ocean of consciousness as a metaphor for teaching about the one which is everything and the individuated consciousness and the breadth of that one, creating individuated consciousness and then reclaiming individuated consciousness, creating individuated fragmented aspects of itself and then resorbing them. And so, in that context, what is the soul? The soul is a part of that great sea of consciousness. Or the soul is a part of that projection of the drop as it comes into physicality. And so you have your personal God self, which is the higher being aspect that is overseeing the incarnation. So you are the one boots on the ground, and there's a higher aspect of you, which is also coming from that great sea of consciousness.
Yeah.
So,
Katie has a question around that. She says, so does all of this mean that our soul does not have a personality, and therefore when we die, our soul remains, but because we're not a person with a body anymore, it's no different than anyone else's soul, or is each soul distinct from other souls?
see, that's a good question. And that's the human mind that wants to categorize things, isn't it? We always want to categorize things, and it's the only way that we can understand things is to slice and dice them in that way. And so I would say, if we're talking about an individuated soul, in the human concept of a thing that exists as a separate thing on its own, I would say that the idea is it has themes within that consciousness that are being explored, but not a personality in terms of how you think of a human personality. But I would also say that that soul is integral to the ocean of consciousness. And so, you see, we can't fathom this idea of how something can be together and separate at the same time. So
very much so.
Yeah, I mean, your soul is an aspect of everything and contains information about everything, because the nature of the oneness is holographic. So if you think of God, the great all that is, the one infinite being, that then segregates off little pieces of itself, just like a hologram, those little pieces potentially have access to everything. Now, when we're in the human condition, we've created the illusion that we don't have access to everything because we've brought ourselves into this density where we've far removed ourselves from that, and we've positioned ourselves in this sort of linear time-space reality, very, very narrow focus. And so part of our ascension process, part of our waking up process is to drop away some of that density so that we become more enlightened, so that we get lighter, so that we get clearer, so that we start to open up to more of that multidimensional nature, to more of that infinite oneness. So what happens to the soul when you die? I almost want to say nothing because it is part of the infinite oneness. And it, as you evolve, it evolves, and everything evolves. As you have an experience, your experience belongs to your soul, belongs to everything and everyone. Because it's a vast pool of consciousness, a vast pool of experience. So it's a difficult subject.
Question from Brian.
Yeah.
Brian says, my understanding is that as a person approaches death, the soul begins to gradually withdraw from the body, like someone with dementia or Alzheimer's who's not completely here.
Yeah.
So how is the soul connected to the body? I've heard people viewing the cord that connects them to the body in astral traveling, but is the soul just shining through us or is it in us? What's your take on this, Dr. Lesley?
Well, you know, it's funny, like, and I'll share with you this. I have an answer that the old Lesley would give, but I feel like I'm on the, right now, I feel like I'm on the edge of birthing a new understanding. And so the old answer would be, yeah, that it is spirit that animates the body, and that when we go through the death process, and yes, if someone has Alzheimer's, then yes, they're starting to withdraw their consciousness already. So you have this living vessel that's not necessarily animated to the same degree. So it's like they're going through a lengthy dying process, and they're starting to experience more multidimensionality. If you notice with somebody who is going through dementia, often their experience of reality is a lot more fragmented. And they see things that you don't see, and they talk about things that you don't talk about, and their timelines get shifted around and modeled up. Their concept of time is very different because, yeah, you're right, they are withdrawing back into spirit. And spirit has not completely withdrawn from the body until the moment of death. But at the moment of death, then its connection is severed and all of the energy is withdrawn from that physical body into that. And so sometimes the astral body may stay animated for a bit longer, but then the energy is withdrawn into the idea of the soul. And then that energy is potentially absorbed back into the pattern of the universe until a new droplet is given birth to that may contain some of the same thematic focus as the one that has completed their cycle. Hopefully that answers your question.
Interesting. I just had a very quick thought about the concept of death when the soul leaves the body in a Christian point of view, or you know, a judgment point of view. If the soul and the body are separate entities, the body being like a glove and the soul fitting in like into that glove, and then on death they separate. The soul is the soul itself is a for the lack of a better term, an innate sort of being. It doesn't have any push or pull on the human aspect of it in one way. Well, when death occurs, it leaves, and the soul is the one that's punished or given exaltation, whereas the body is just left to go back to dust. So basically, what's happening is the soul is taking all the razzing for the body. That's just
And you're talking from the Christian concept.
from a
You're
Christian or any type of punishment. Uh, um, um, uh, what's the term? Punishment or elation? Like
yeah, which is not a belief that you hold. It's just a thing that you're talking
yeah,
about.
just something that hit me, like coming from that strong Christian belief system prior. By the way, the topic on this, the general topic is under belief systems. So, and guess what, Dr. Lesley?
It's time for a break.
It's time for a break. So why
Yeah.
don't we do that? We'll go to a break. You can all contemplate the soul a little bit more, and we'll come back. And Dr. Lesley, there's another question for you as well.
Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey. Did you want me to wait longer?
No, that's perfectly
Oh,
fine.
start again now.
Brian, by the way, Brian said your new expanded view is exactly why it's so great to revisit previous topics.
Yes, thank you. I'm in the process of thinking this through, so it's almost like this show is a bit premature, so maybe we'll do one later. I've been drawing a big diagram of things.
Oh no.
Okay. So before that, well, no, I've got to say welcome back. Welcome back, listeners.
You already did that.
Did we? Oh.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth, Dr. Lesley. And before the break, Corey, you were talking about some Christian belief system where the soul doesn't have a pull on the body or something. And it just made me think that everything that the body is led by the soul and guided by the soul. And if we open to our intuition, then we are able to receive that guidance, and the experience that you have in the body helps the soul expand. So they're integral, they're not separate at all.
Yeah, but the soul itself in essence is good. There's no evil in the soul. So when you look at that, the soul, yes, is trying to get the body to make good choices, like life choices that would bring it closer to enlightenment, if you want to call
Good
it.
and evil is a human concept as a consequence of the duality, that based reality that we're embedded in. And beyond the human experience, there is no judgment, there's just experience, and all experience can lead to expansion. And in what we sometimes refer to as the ascension process, what we're learning is how we can be in balance. And balance is the neutrality, the neutral point between opposites. So instead of this is all good and this is all bad, we're the neutral observers of reality, making choices from a neutral, non-judgmental spiritual perspective based on our passion, versus the old paradigm where you're bad, I'm going to judge you, this is good, as opposed to that, I'll be rewarded for this, or whatever it is. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay. There was a question from Katie. Katie says, how would you explain souls that have not crossed over or places haunted by ghosts? Are those souls or something else?
I don't think of that as the soul. I think of that as an energetic fragment. So remember, we said that when somebody passes away, that spirit withdraws from the physical body and the physical body is left behind and it dissolves. Well, depending on that person and the level of personal evolution that's gone on within themselves, there can be lots of unfinished business. So there can be fragments of that, energetic fragments of that body personality that are left behind that almost have a pseudo consciousness of their own. So there can be thought forms or even like a fragment of that personality full of unresolved things. And so that's what I would say the idea of a ghost might be, that it is unresolved energy left over from the incarnation. So, yeah, you seem to have lost Corey. Oh, no, he's back. Oh, good. So I've just finished answering that question.
Oh, that's very good of you. We have a couple of friends that have written a book about that, and they were called, I can't remember, were they Between Life or anyway, the gist is they were the ambulance that would come to people or spirits that could not cross over. They were being held back for some reason, and families that had them there had experiences with them. They would call our friend, and she would go into a trance or a dreamlike state.
That's
And
something that happens to a lot of people when they're just waking up, that they become aware of those, you know, people who don't quite realize they're dead, and help them move on by talking to them.
yeah, and it's so they would be in charge of helping them out. Dream paramedics or something they were called. I have to look that up because I couldn't remember it last time as well.
Well, they don't do that work anymore.
No, they don't do it.
But there are plenty of people who do.
Oh yes.
And it's an experience that often people have as they start to develop their psychic abilities and become aware of these things.
If you're having an issue with loved ones, folks, just call Dr. Lesley. I'm sure she's gonna like that one. I don't think we have a new. Oh no, we have one from Brian. Brian says, so when mediums tell a ghost to go into the light, that's essentially the soul reclaiming that fragment.
I think of that more as a slightly different thing in a way. You know, that, well, is it that? I suppose we could say that that is what it is. Yeah.
I know it's an interesting topic. I mean, we also have a friend lives close to us. I haven't spoken to him for a while, but he went from working in like a personal development field in a guru type state with a guru to becoming a presenter of death, and would talk to people. He would do seminars and all kinds of things on death and accepting death, because death is one of those things that is so so taboo for so many people, because they fear what's happening coming up. And I'm getting older, and death is more predominant in my mind than it was when I was 25. And I can tell you that the idea of death even though you're getting closer to death, in one way becomes less scary than previously. I mean, before it was, oh my gosh, death, I'm going to be losing something. But now that I've lived a life that I consider quite full, death is not that scary a thing. It's another, just a transfer into another state for me. He says now, when he's not facing it.
And how do you feel about your ego, your body, your personality dissolving?
Well, I have no issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. I don't like my personality all that much sometimes. But I adhere to the Star Trek version of Odo, going back to, if we have any Star Trek fans, he was a changeling, and he went back and found his people, and it was a huge lake, and he would just meld in with these people, and he thought he was all alone, and he went in and he came out with a total mindset transformation. And he thought it was, he would lose his identity at first, but then he realized he didn't lose his identity. He gained everybody else's identity. And so I believe that my personal belief is, depending on the voyage you want to make, would determine how much of this entity you bring back. And yes, we look at this entity that we're in right now and go, hey, this I like this guy, he's really cool, and or like, I don't want him to die, I want to exist and keep going. But once you transform, you realize that we're just like the mice, the smallest possible size of being, compared to this lake or sea of consciousness. So coming back as this person would probably, in other words, in another term, a waste of time and energy, because we've already done this thing. We want to go on a different ride now. Never mind this roller coaster. Let's go on the whirl, hoop the whirl, or whatever it is. So yeah.
A metaphor for that would be the idea of a theater, and that you are playing different roles in the play. And so you get to try on all sorts of different characters. That would be a metaphor for what you've just been saying.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it is what it is. I think that's exactly what it is. We had an interview with a gentleman who was a entertainer, and that's how he looked at life and death. And so this is from Brian. So Brian, well, we covered that one about the ghosts. And this is from Anderini. Anderini says, so she says, I read Life Between Lives by Michael Newton and other titles. They are interesting. Are they valid?
I think I've read that book, Life Between Lives, a long time ago. So I can't really remember.
I don't think it's Dr. Weiss. Dr. Weiss, who actually wrote the first Life Between Lives, which is I think he's the most well known for that.
Yeah, so is it valid? Well, again, I think, one of what we've been doing tonight is almost like looking at this from different perspectives. So on one level of perspective, it's valid. On one level of belief system, it's valid. The idea that we, so you create your reality through your energy. And so the idea is that when you pass away, you continue to create your reality. And sometimes you've built a momentum. And so that can lead you into experiences in the afterlife that are self-fulfilling prophecies about what you believe will happen when you die. But also to the idea of planning another incarnation, perhaps to pursue a similar theme or the same theme. So I would say it's valid information from the perspective that it's being looked at.
This is from Brian. Brian says, are there situations where a soul can leave the body prior to physical death, maybe like brain death or falling from a great height?
I don't think that, so, and maybe this is back to Corey's question of what's the difference between soul and spirit. Spirit can leave the body. Spirit can leave the body. I don't know whether the soul is ever completely separated from the body until death, but the consciousness that's inhabiting the body can leave the body completely and come back. So it's sort of like an extreme out-of-body experience. I think in my book, I talk about different levels of out-of-body experience. And, you know, one level is in your astral body. One level is in your light body. Another level is in no body at all, but just leaving as pure spirit, pure consciousness. I have a client who has a great story about that, and it wasn't through I can't remember. I think maybe he did pass out. He passed out at work, just like fainting, and he was immediately projected into space, into the Andromeda galaxy, actually, and it was really real to him. It like it was as real as this reality, that he completely left his body, and he wasn't in a body. He was a spark of consciousness in that experience that he had.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess astral travel is the closest thing we have to feeling what it's like to be gone. Yes, no.
Well, you can never be gone. You exist. The consciousness that you are will never cease to exist. But the experiences that you have as the consciousness that you are will change, will always change and always be changing. Oh, who says it's a fun show?
Well, this is a wonderful show.
It's a fun show. Thank you.
I was just going to tell you, it's a wonderful show, and I think the questions that we're receiving. Oh, Brian says it's a fun show as well. The questions that we're receiving and you're answering are deep, you know, spiritual and philosophical deep questions, and so that's been a great show. Thank you, Dr. Lesley. SG, yes, you could have asked questions, but it's now time to say goodnight. You can always ask questions. And so, folks, we shall see you all next week. And thank you all for showing up and asking your questions.
Yeah, and send in your requests for what you'd like us to talk about. We'd love it if you did. Yes. What's your favorite thing that you would love us to talk about in the next few shows?
Yeah. Maybe we should do a book review.
A book review on a book.
Oh boy, no fooling you today, Dr. Lesley.
What book should we do a review on?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just coming up with something in mind. Anyway, folks, we're here, and now we're not here.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, I think it might be my third Thursday this week. If you're on Facebook. Yes, Thursday. is a free third Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. So if you're on my mailing list, then you should get to hear about it. So make sure you are on my mailing list.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. I shall put that in our podcast. Oh no, that'll be too late. Okay. Thank you. Bye.